to this episode of the Maza's Musings podcast. We haven't done a music-themed episode in a while, and so we're bringing you one today. I am talking with Chris, who's a friend of mine from back in my college days, who recently, for one of Metallica's recent tours, was able to experience a whole bunch of different shows all over the country, all over North America and Europe. So we're going to talk about his experiences, some of the people that he's met along the way, which is really astounding. He has made friends and lifelong connections through this music with people all around the world. So it's a great listen. I look forward to you guys listening to it. But of course, before we get to that, we've got a couple of other things. First off, we've got Meghan with her joke of the week. Hi, Meghan. You can say hi.
Hi.
Are you ready to tell us a joke?
It's a riddle.
Oh, it's a riddle.
And yes.
Okay. What's the riddle?
How do you keep a skunk from smelling?
I don't know. How do you keep a skunk from smelling?
Hold its nose.
Oh, that's a great riddle. Well, now that we've had a laugh, now it's time to get things rolling with our Maza's Mickey Minute.
Donald, wake up! It's showtime! Don't forget the orchestra.
Ah, there you are. And just in time.
Mom says there's even more magical stuff now.
For those of you standing, please hold on to the handrails throughout our journey and stay clear of the doors.
Hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
And here we go!
Well, now we have some pretty interesting news. It's not so much news as a glimpse of something that actually Eileen and I had been talking about recently, and that is the new show with The Little Mermaid. Now, it was the Voyage of the Little Mermaid at Hollywood Studios. The new one that they have announced is called The Little Mermaid, A Musical Adventure. And recently, the Disney Live Entertainment put something out on their Instagram where they showed a couple of the puppets that are going to be used as part of this show. A lot of Disney's shows have this cool puppetry with them. I'm looking forward to seeing the Finding Nemo show at Animal Kingdom, which we haven't seen yet, and this will be our first opportunity to see it since it has come back to the stage. So I think that this is going to be something similar to that. They made this kind of sneak peek along with some other things. There was also the some stuff related to the new nighttime parade that's also kind of alluded to in this, as well as some of the new villain stuff from the villain show that's going to be at Hollywood Studios. So I'd encourage you to go over to the Disney Live Entertainment Instagram just to take a peek. You know, it doesn't give a lot of information, but it is kind of just showing that this stuff is in the works. There's active movement on this. You can see there's a flamingo. It looks like a flamingo. It's pink. In one of the pictures, kind of illustrating that scene where the trees part during the Kiss the Girl scene. And there's also another one with these little kind of frog puppets that I'd imagine are also part of that kind of, whether they're in a pond or a lagoon or whatever it is. So exciting that there's some kind of movement on this. Eileen and I had just been talking in a recent episode that we weren't sure exactly what was going to be happening with this, but it finally seems like something is. So that's great to see. You know, what's also great to see is all the money that you can save when you book your trip with a travel agent. Travel agents like our friends at We Do Travel Right are all about making sure that you get the best bang for your buck. Emily and her team offer all kinds of services, including the dining team, which will help you get all of your reservations and all that kind of stuff out of the way. They can also provide tips on how to navigate the parks and how to best spend your time. And if there are any deals out there at all, they will help you find them. And the best part about all of that, which is a great money saver in and of itself, is the use of an agent through We Do Travel Right is free, because Disney, Universal, cruise lines, all inclusives, they build the cost of using these agents into their pricing, whether you use them or not. So doesn't it just make sense to use the agent? So if you want to get your free, obligation-free quote, go to wedotravelright.com/Maza. That's wedotravelright.com/MAZA and get your next magical trip started today.
Well, I can't do any more damage around this popsicle stand.
So long, partner.
See you real soon.
And yes, you will, Mickey. We are now getting down to it. We're just over 3 weeks until our next trip, and we're looking forward to it. And yes, we did use We Do Travel Right. Now, let's get right into our main topic, our talk with Chris and his touring with Metallica. All right, well, I am here with my buddy Chris, who is the biggest, by far, Metallica fan that I've ever known. And he's here to talk with me. I'm actually just going to... you posted something on your social media that really was the inspiration for this. Has been something that I've wanted to talk with you about just generally, and thought this would be great for a podcast. So this was something that you actually posted back in October. You said, my 72 seasons, 2023-2024 Europe and North America tour, 25 shows, 10 pits, 6 countries, 12 cities. Now that just to me was just like, I mean, I'd kind of followed along when you'd post pictures or things like this, but I was just like, I got to talk to him about this experience, this trip, and everything that went into it. So before we get into the weeds of everywhere that you've been during this tour, if you just wanted to introduce yourself a little bit and talk a little bit about how your Metallica fandom started way back when.
My name's Chris Sulek. I live in Aspen, Colorado. I grew up in Wichita Falls, Texas. Spent a year in Massachusetts, where I met the great Chris Maza. We wrote together on the school newspaper at Holyoke Community College. As far as getting into Metallica, that really took root in high school. I had a friend that, we were both football players. We both played trumpet with the school band, and we'd go back to his house and hang out. And I'd heard of Metallica, but I knew nothing about them. So he played some CDs for me. He's like, yeah, they're the guys that play Enter Sandman. I was like, oh, I've heard that before. But really got into And Justice for All when he played one for me, and I don't know, it was just really neat. I became a big fan, tried to follow them. I had no chance of going to Dallas and seeing any of their concerts at the time. About the time I was hanging out with you in Massachusetts, that's when I finally got my first tickets for when I was going to be going back home for this summer, seeing them for the first time live at Summer Sanitarium in Dallas, Texas. After that, I just, every few years I'd get the opportunity to go see them. And that was always huge for me. That would make my year just to go see them. Was fortunate enough to get a ticket to one of their 30th anniversary shows in 2011. They did 4 shows at the Fillmore in San Francisco. So a very small venue for Metallica. And they just pulled out all types of special guests all week. Their bassist, who had left the band in 2001, Jason Newsted, he came back all 4 nights. So it was our opportunity to oh my goodness, I never thought I'd see Jason again. And so I got to go to one show. It was extremely epic. And then, didn't get to see them again for another 4 years. I believe it was 2018 when they started their black ticket at the time. It's now the I Disappear ticket, but it was essentially your season ticket for seeing Metallica. You buy one pass. You get to go to any show on the tour. You get early entry compared to general admission because we're going down to the floor, so you could get your spot at the rail or by the soundboard, whatever you choose. And I think in 2019 is when I first bought it, and I bought it for the European tour. I was able to knock out 6 shows in 2 weeks. And after that, I was like, anytime this comes out, I have to get it and take any opportunity I can to go to whatever city I can. And at the time, that was 2 weeks, 6 shows. It was, I went over to Europe. I go to a show. I have a travel day, go to a show, travel day. So I did 2 weeks of that. And I was like, well, I didn't really get to experience anything in Europe. And then, but also at the same time, I was still, I was being my introvert self when you go to these shows. Wouldn't talk to anyone. I'd sit there and listen to college football podcasts in line. I'd get in, I'd get my spot at the rail, and I'd continue listening to podcasts until the bands came out. So then when I came back, I realized, well, that wasn't cool as well. I saw that there were these Metallica fans that were getting together, that were throwing these parties, they were traveling together. And I was like, wow, next time I should really, try to get in with these people. 2022 rolled around and I did the South America tour. I just did the Brazil dates. There were 4 Brazil dates. I'd gone to Brazil back in 2014 for 3 weeks for the World Cup. So I knew what kind of culture they had, very outgoing people. And I was like, this is an opportunity that I can't pass up. So I got out there, went to my first show in Porto Alegre, got in line, immediately put on the earbuds and went back to my introvert self. But once I got inside, I started talking to some Brazilians that were there that were doing that had the black ticket, the I Disappear ticket. And it was like wildfire. I mean, I found the Metallica family. I'm introduced to people left and right, and that continued with every show. And then 2022, fast forward now to 2023, 2024, after they put out their 72 Seasons album. And that's what led to this journey these last 2 years.
So how did where did you start here? I know that you were moving around. You found lots of places to go over this period of time. But what was the starting point?
For this one, so that they offered 3 passes for this. One was the Diamond Pass, which was good for North America and Europe over the span of 2 years. Then they offered a Gold Pass for each year. The Gold Pass was good for North America and US, or North America and Europe for the year. And then they offered a Silver one, which is good for either Europe or either North America for the year. So I started with a Gold Pass, I started with the Silver Pass for North America for the first year. I looked at the calendar. I was like, what can I make work? So I was like, I can do the US shows. So I was planning on 8 to 10 shows in 2023 in the USA, and I started in Arlington. So that was great. That was, back to the hometown gig, right? I was the only person that was excited for Arlington because a lot of these people that travel the world, they're like, we got to go to Texas in August. And it was hitting 108, 109 every day. And, since I've moved to Colorado 16 years ago, I mean, my skin has gotten soft. I can't stand the heat and humidity anymore. I used to embrace that. But yeah, we got there, and it was great because, I had friends, a couple that I initially met from LA in Brazil, and that had grown to a couple other people. And I was able to host them at my best friend's, house in Garland, Texas. And he was, he gave us a truck to use. We were able to sit by his pool every night, have some bourbon and cigars. So it was great right off the bat. I was able to host some of my Metallica friends for the start of this tour. And also the good thing about this was I talked about the, show travel, with this with this iteration of the tour, they said what we're going to do is we're going to do two stops per city, or 2 shows per city. We're going to play Friday, we're going to play Sunday, and then the next city will be a week from now. So you have time to spend in each city, time to relax. We'll get an Airbnb and we'll spend the weekend there. So yeah, we were able to hang out every night. I was able to take them, show them around. We were able to get some Texas barbecue. There's the night in between where the band, a couple of members in the band, they have sons that have their own bands, and so they play the night in between here, at least in the U.S. Cities, and so we were able to go to downtown Dallas and go experience that too. But yeah, it started with Arlington, and it started that the very first show we were able to get into the Snake Pit. So they're playing. These are all stadium shows, so they're playing in soccer stadiums. They're playing in NFL stadiums, and you've got this big circular stage that's in the center of the stadium. So they've always done in the round in the arenas, and they brought that concept to the stadium, which was a challenge for them because these guys, they're in their 60s. Yeah. Now they're having to travel around this giant stage, and in the middle you have what's considered the Snake Pit. And the Snake Pit's always been more of a smaller thing at these arena shows. Now the Snake Pit is massive. So they're having to play for the audience outside the Snake Pit as well as the audience inside the Snake Pit, traveling around this massive stage. So they actually did a really good job of that, and they've obviously over these 2 years have become really efficient at how they do it. But yeah, that the very first show, we get there. I'm always used to showing up, being on the rail. By the time we got there after eating barbecue and kind of just walking in when we did, it was like, we're not going to get to the rail. So I have some anxiety about that because it's new to me not to be there. But then we have friends, and what they do is, there's people that win Snake Pit passes. There's people that buy Snake Pit passes. Usually if you win a contest, you win 2. So you're able to call your friend, hey, just get a ticket. I've got a Snake Pit pass. We'll go in. And then, there's crew members out there with the band that help with the setup that before the band goes on stage, they're nice enough to bring out envelopes and hand out, Snake Pit passes to various people. So we were fortunate to right before the band was about to go on. It's like, hey, do you want to go in the Snake Pit? Hell yeah. So, we throw our wristbands on, we go in, and I kind of experienced that I've been in a Snake Pit before, but just, it was still the stadium tours, but it was a much smaller Snake Pit. You're kind of just front and center with the stage at the end. But in this instance, it was just massive, and it was like, what do we do? So, with that round stage, Lars Ulrich, the drummer, has 4 drum kits. So it'll pop up for like the first 4 songs. That drum kit disappears. On the other side, another one pops up, 4 more songs, and they do that 4 times. So we just kind of went in. We weren't close to the stage. There's people that get in there early. They put their hands on the stage. This is where I'm going to be the whole show. The stage actually, goes up and down. So there's places where you want to be at the dip, and that's at each end, because then you're closer to the band members. If I go to the other, 90 degrees from there, the stage is above my head. So people like those spots and they'll park there. So we got there. Me and my friend Edgar just kind of moved around with the band on the inside, and it was like, okay, that was cool. I did it. I'd rather just be back on the rail. Sunday, and I always like to mix sports with Metallica if I possibly can. So Max Scherzer was pitching that day. We go early. I dropped them off. I'm like, have fun waiting in the heat. I offered to buy them baseball tickets so they could sit in the air conditioning. So I watched the Rangers, and then I'm like, man, I can do Rangers and Metallica the same day. That's a dream come true. So I get over there, and obviously walk in late. My friends did happen to get on the rail though, when I dropped them off. And then I was able to talk to some people, make some friends, and they were like, yeah, you know what? You can go up there with your friends, thank you much. And, show number 2 there, that was a great show, just right there on the rail. They played some really good songs that we wanted to hear, and it was sort of like, okay, this is going to be the new experience for the new tour, new stage, new everything. And that's, that was the kickoff of it. took off after that to LA. And that was where I first experienced, okay, I'll back up from the rail. And I went back by the soundboard, and I realized, man, if you show up for the rail, you show up early.
Right.
For me, early is like 2 p.m. There's a lot of people that they're like, I'm going to get there at 8. I'm going to get there at 10. I'm going to get there at noon. And I'm like, no way. But usually it's like, yeah, you get there, you hang out in line all day, you get to move around. But then it's like, I can't drink too much water. I can't start drinking alcohol. I've gotta eat now, because once I'm in there and I get my rail spot, I'm stuck there the rest of the day and the evening. I can't go use the restroom. And then on top of that, you're next to, you're hanging out with 2 or 3 people the rest of the day, those 2 or 3 people around you. So I think it was day 2. Yeah, it was day 2 in LA. Night 1, I had problems hearing, and that's the other thing in these cavernous NFL stadiums. There's a lot of trouble with that sound. And what I found is usually night 1 is where you're going to hear your problems, and by night 2 they have it dialed in. But if you always want good sound, you go stand by the soundboard. So after night 1, I had problems hearing James Hetfield's guitar, and that's really what I go to listen to. So night 2, I was like, I'm going to go hang by the soundboard. I'm going to go talk to people. I'm going to go have fun over there. And I realized, man, instead of hanging out with 2 or 3 people, I can come headbang with like 15 people, hear some great sound. There's still FOMO because I'm not, up close seeing the whites of their eyes. But it's still, the experience was still worth it to me. So I actually started to incorporate that for the rest of the tour. Night 1 on the rail, night 2 by the soundboard. And then after that, they were playing Phoenix, and this turned out to be this all worked out well. I was going to I had tickets to see Foo Fighters the previous year in Denver, but their drummer passed away, and they canceled the rest of their tour, and we're like, when are we going to see them again? In this instance, the Foo Fighters were coming to Jazz Aspen for the Labor Day shows, and I was like, well, I wanted to go see Metallica in Phoenix, and I wanted to continue, but I was like, if the Foo Fighters are coming to me, I've got to see the Foo Fighters. So I go see the Foo Fighters, but on Friday there was an update that Metallica had played. They cut some songs out of their set list, and they cut the show short. Well, it turned out James Hetfield had COVID. So they postponed that Sunday show, and they said, we're going to play it next Saturday. So I didn't miss out on the short set list. I got to see the Foo Fighters. They came to my backyard, and then the next week I was able to go out to Phoenix and go see show number 2, and we got to see the full set list.
It's awesome when things can work out exactly the way you need them to.
Yeah. I felt very fortunate. But it was a weird feeling because with all these I Disappear tickets, the I Disappear ticket people, we spend all that time together in line. We see each other on the night in between. We have a lot of international friends. So our day, I've gotten to the point where before I'd always make sure I had a big meal the day of. I'd go do some sightseeing. And that's when I wasn't going to hang out with anybody. Now I find that on show day, I wake up, I've got a lot of anxiety because I know I'm about to go see the Met fam, and I'm really excited to see them. I go try to eat a meal. I can never finish a meal. Like I can't eat on those days. I feel that anxiety. And then when I get there, I'm just so happy to see them, hang out with them, talk with them. And then everything starts to settle down for me. But yeah, that second show in Phoenix, the makeup show, it was just a weird feeling because all of our international friends who had been there for 3 weeks for that leg of the tour were all gone, and we're all missing out. The I Disappear line was so small. There were just a few of us. And I don't know, it was a weird feeling, but obviously when we got in there and the boys started playing, it was awesome as always. Yeah. And then from Phoenix, few weeks off. And then this is where it got great. I was working. The Texas Rangers had made it to the World Series. I saw some of their games. I had bought Southwest Airline tickets to go to Dallas for games 6 and 7 if necessary. I was working Tuesday night till Wednesday morning before game 5 till 4:30 in the morning. At 3:30 in the morning, I decided, well, what do tickets look like for games 6 and 7? The Rangers have the opportunity to win at home, and we've never seen that. So tickets, I feel like the cheapest ticket I saw was like $2,600.
Yeah.
But then I was like, well, the Diamondbacks can't clinch at home. What do their fans think? And I found a $425 ticket high up above third base. And I was like, now we're talking. So I see that a flight out of Aspen, $500. And I was like, we're looking at $1,000 to go see a World Series game. And I could see my team win. I was like, that's worth it. So 3:30 in the morning, I just buy everything. I fly out at 7 that morning, get there, take a quick nap, head over to the ballpark. And I'm fortunate I did this because the Rangers end up winning the World Series, another dream come true. And at that point, I celebrate, I go back to the hotel room, I cry my eyes out. And then the next call I make is to Southwest Airlines. Hey, can you change Denver to Dallas to Phoenix to St. Louis? And they're like, yeah, I think it was like $50. I was like, sweet. Check in with some friends because Metallica is playing St. Louis that weekend. And they're like, yeah, we have an extra bed at the Airbnb. Fly out there, meet up with my friends the next day, get to the rail. And I reach out to a friend of mine from Santa Monica, Neville. And I'm like, hey, did you make it to St. Louis? And he goes, no, I didn't. But I bought a ticket to the James Hetfield book signing. Do you want it? Yeah, I do. So at first he wouldn't let me pay for it, but luckily when he sent it over, it was the receipt, so I was able to Venmo him back. So yeah, I go, I see the Rangers win the World Series, make it to Metallica, and then I meet James Hetfield the next day, and he signs a book for me. I go by, I'm wearing Bastardane, so that's his son Castor's in the band Bastardane. I'm wearing my Bastardane shirt because we're going to see Bastardane that night. And right when I walk up, he looks up and he's like, I'll see you at the show tonight, right? I was like, yep, I'll be there. And I've been fortunate to meet him before. So it was just, they were sort of just filing us through. And I think he obviously was like, no, I want some more interaction with the fans. So the next week in Detroit, he spent more time, speaking with the fans. But yeah, and then it was funny. So at that point, we leave with our books, me and my friends. We were going to go eat at this pizza joint across the street, but it was like a 45-minute wait. So we were like, hey, let's go. I wanted to go somewhere and watch the Oklahoma football game. So we end up at this, this brewery, but they actually didn't have much for food. So we got there. My friend Sasha started becoming hangry, and she was like, we're going next door to get tacos. I don't care about your game. She was just, and it all worked out freaking great because I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm here to hang out with you guys. So we go next door and we walk in, and who's in there eating? So we just saw James Hetfield. Who's in there eating but the bassist Rob Trujillo and the guitarist Kirk Hammett. So that we were like, oh, that's awesome. So we didn't pester them that, they were there having their downtime, and then we got to see them walk out, but it was just cool being in their presence. Yeah. And then, did Otto Bastardane that night, or actually, no, it wasn't Otto. It was Bastardane and someone else. Otto wasn't there at that point in the tour, but yeah, we did that. And then, did some more stuff the next day. I got to do my friend Cheese from LA. Had some enhanced experiences for the black box. So we got there, we go in, we get to play with instruments, do some trivia, eat from a buffet, see some of their stuff, just sort of their enhanced experience stuff. But and then from St. Louis, and I'm sorry, I'm just rambling until you stop me. Yeah. From St. Louis, the next week was Detroit, and some of my same friends, Edgar and Sasha, and this time Neville instead of Cheese. But we get to Detroit, and this is the end for me. Well, this is the end of the North American tour for 2023. So we get to Detroit. Me and Neville get up close. The first night. That night we get back, and I think we're staying. I want to say it's Mexican Town. is the neighborhood. And it's a really cool neighborhood. There were some shady people around the corner from us, but outside of that we just ran into when we were turning around the first night we were there. But other than that, it was nice enough. But we're in Detroit. We're in a big city. Edgar's from LA. We're walking out to go to our first show. And this is, we've just been calling it the Airbnb. That's the impression that I've been under. So we're walking out. There is a door with a code for a lock. But also there's, just the little lock on the door handle that you close. So we're walking out. Edgar goes to lock the door. He locks the door knob. He locks the electric lock. We hop in, we leave. We go, we see our concert, have a great time. We go to a bar afterwards. We meet up with friends, meet some new friends. And then afterwards, like, all right, time to go home, regroup. There was another book signing the next day, and I was sending Neville in my place to go see Hetfield. I think that was an offer from Edgar to me that I passed on to Neville. And he was like, are you sure you get to meet him? I was like, I've met him. You go meet him. And so we get back home. We don't have a key for the doorknob.
Oh no.
So we're locked out. And then there is a little, there's another little safe, thing for a key. You got to have the 4-digit combination to open it. And we're like, that's got to be the key for the doorknob. And I'm thinking Airbnb. Sasha's kind of freaking out. And so I'm just like, hey, just reach out via Airbnb. Hosts get back to you quickly on this stuff. In the meantime, we'll go get some food. And then we'll come back. Everything's going to be fine. But what she knew that I didn't know was that she booked it through booking.com. So we're actually dealing with the website, not directly with the host. So she's got to go through them to hopefully get to a host who may get back. The first place we go to closed. I call the next place. Hey, are you guys open? Yes. Cool. We get another Uber. Next place. We show up. It's not dine-in. It's just takeout. I was like, dang it. So I find another place. Are you guys open? And do you, is your dining room open? Yes, we're open 24 hours. Great. We show up. He must have hung up the phone and gotten shot because the place is surrounded by cops.
Oh,
and so I've got video of that. And at that point, we're just like, what?
Sounds very Detroit.
It does. It should have been expected. But so from there, it's like, the Uber driver took pity on us, and we're like, is there anywhere you can take us? So he ends up taking us back downtown. It's one of those Coney Island places that are all over the place in Detroit. We go in. I think everybody in the establishment hit me up for $20. The restroom wasn't working. Me and Neville had to go out back to, just use the facilities outside. And even then, somebody's trying to hit me up for money. But we get back in. It's about 4 a.m. We get our food. The food was actually really good. They were like, yeah, Al's behind the grill. And we were like, we're happy Al's behind the grill. The trash. So we're sitting by this trash can where all the trash is just built up. And Sasha got an epic picture of us just really happy at 4 a.m. locked out with our food. We ended up getting a locksmith at about 7 a.m. 7 or 8 a.m. Yeah. And finally got in. So I felt completely hung over the next day just from lack of sleep and sleeping well into the day. But we had started a text thread leading up to that weekend, and I called it Detroit Rock City. By the time we left, the name of the text thread was Detroit Lock City. So that text thread still lives. But yeah, then let's see, the second night, I think, we ended up just taking it easy just from the events from the weekend. I ended up by the soundboard again. And then that's when one of the major songs that I look forward to hearing is Fight Fire with Fire. So I was fortunate to hear that in LA, and then that final night in Detroit. And at that point, I had a beer in my hand. I was with, Neville and Edgar. And at that point, I heard the intro tape to it. I just dropped the beer and we took off to go in. I was like, there's going to be a mosh pit and we're going to be a part of this. And sure as heck we did. We're in there, we're moshing, and one didn't develop like I pictured it would. So we were just kind of being rambunctious, and it was like, these idiots, But we ended up working our way up to the stage, and these kids behind us were like, you guys are badass. He's like, I've been looking for that the whole show, and nobody wants to do anything. So we were like, okay, we found our people. And I kept in touch with one of those guys on Instagram since, and as far as it goes, it was great. We got our guitar picks and all that after the show, and it was that was North America. That was the first year, and so. Yeah, going to the next year, I'd purchased I was able to look at my schedule. I could make time, go to Europe. And fortunately, yeah, I started working with the sheriff's office in 2017. We had been short staffed for a lot of that. So I'd built up plenty of vacation time. And I looked at the schedule and I was like, well, I can take 7 weeks off over the summer and fit 6 weeks into Europe. And I'm able to do 4 cities, 8 shows. And do some stuff in between.
Now, before we get into like the specifics of shows, how is it moving around Europe? Compared to trying to get around the United States, which obviously is much bigger and infrastructure is a lot different.
Yeah, it was a lot more interesting. It was a lot more fun actually moving around Europe. I took a couple flights, but also train as well as ferry, essentially unlike cruise ships, and that was cool. Over there, instead of Uber, I used Bolt. So that's a service they have there, and it was much cheaper using Bolt. And I remember the first time I felt that when I first got to Europe, I took a taxi. I was in Helsinki, Finland. And then I felt bad because I didn't have any currency yet and I couldn't tip the guy. And I was trying to tell him, he didn't speak much English, but I told him I felt bad that I couldn't tip him. And then I got inside and I went to a restaurant. I told the woman there, I was like, I feel bad, I can't tip you. And then I realized that, she was like, yeah, we don't work for tips here. You don't have to feel bad. I was like, oh yeah. So, and that's another thing in Europe. It's like, there's no tipping culture there whatsoever. I tipped a few people here and there for great service, but it's not expected and it's not a part of your bill. You don't have to account for it. And it was like that was a relief too. But moving around was a lot more fun. A lot easier, not having to deal with TSA too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you said you ended up starting in Helsinki for the European leg of this adventure.
Yes. Showed up in Helsinki, and that's when I learned, when I first got there, I go through customs, border patrol, and I'm like, yeah, I'm here to visit. I'll be here in Europe for 6 weeks. I'm going to visit Scandinavia and go on from there. And he's like, oh, well, are you going to be in Finland at all? And I was like, yeah, I thought I said that with Scandinavia. And then that's when I learned it was like, oh, they're not Scandinavia. Those are the Nordic countries up there. Scandinavia constitutes, Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. And I, just being in America, I think that's how a lot of us have always referred to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got to Helsinki. Didn't have any plans with anybody. I did know my friend Sasha was going to be there. My friend Danon from Australia. So I was like, I'll see them as they're filing in, and we'll go from there. So I get to Helsinki, kind of hang out for a couple days by myself, just checking out the food. Did a day trip to Estonia. Took the 2-hour ferry over. When I was halfway there, I realized, holy crap, I didn't bring my passport. And I was worried, but with the Schengen zone, or however it's pronounced, you're able to move freely without using a passport. But I was just picturing myself being stuck on a ferry the rest of the day until I could call my hotel and say, hey, break into my safe and get my passport. But no worries there. We get closer to the day. My friend Danon comes in from Australia. I was able to hang out with him the night before. I'd bought him a lot of drinks in LA the year before. And so he was like, the next drinks are on me. Got to meet his mother. He was also doing some running races while he was in Europe as well, including one on Saturday, the day after the Metallica show. I was like, that's extremely ambitious. But yeah, I get there Friday to the first show. Get there fashionably late, walk to the front of the line just to say hi to all my international friends that happen to be there. start working my way back. The Dallas Stars had just been eliminated from the Western Conference Finals by Edmonton. So as I'm walking back, there's a guy in an Edmonton sweater. And so I walk up to him begrudgingly, and I'm like, good luck to you guys. I was hoping to bring my Dallas Stars stuff. And then I'm walking away, and he turns around and goes, Chris? And it was my buddy Paul from Edmonton that I had met the year before waiting in line in St. Louis. And I didn't realize it. I was like, oh. So I just went, stood with him. We ended up filing inside. Not many people went to that show. So it was like we got inside. It was really sparse on the rail with general admission as well as or with I Disappear as well as Frantic. And those are the people that buy the individual experience passes for that weekend, and they get in before the I Disappear crowd. So I walked up. I'm surrounded by people I don't know, and I'm like, well, here we go. Let's get to it. Start talking to this guy from Trondheim, Norway. And we're talking. I was going to be staying with some friends in Norway later in this trip, so I wanted to know his thoughts on Norway. As we're talking, 5 people just walk away from the rail next to me because there's no need to hold your rail spot, and that's closer to the dip. It's closer to Lars's station, and I'm like, for me, that's where I want to be. So I move 5 spaces over, and I assume that my new friend is going to come walk over with me. He doesn't. He's like, why is this guy, walking over there? So we kind of talk from afar for a bit, and then 5 people come in and take that spot, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll never see you again. And then so the other goal that I had going into this, so it was going to be Helsinki, Copenhagen, a couple weeks off, Warsaw, Madrid, and so. My father was born in Poland. I'm getting my Polish citizenship, and I was like, I want to get in with the guys from Poland. I want to meet their fan club. Those are people I want to party with.
Yeah.
So I had scoot over, and I'm there again, surrounded by people I don't know. So there's a girl next to me. I just, hey, where are you from? Poland. What? And then so my friend Natalia. And it turns out that she's in with that fan club overkill.pl and knows all those people. So hang out with her, talk Metallica that day. We end up having there's a guy from Finland who had come to see the show. He doesn't live in Helsinki, but he made his way there. Tall guy, green hair, and we met. He tapped me on the shoulder. He was like, "I'm sorry if I hit you with my hair while I'm headbanging." I'm like, bro, we're at a Metallica show. I expect you to do that. So the 3 of us decide that, hey, let's meet up again. We'll be at the same spot. We'll do this again on Sunday. We do that. I'm introduced to another Polish friend, Remik. So he hangs out with us at the rail that day. I'm able to get my friend Danon there. And so we have a good, friendly crowd there on Sunday. So that was good. Saw all my international friends. My friend Christina from Denmark, my friends from St. Germany. That's the big German fan club. And then I go on from there, take another ferry. So the part of the interesting journey of traveling over there, take an overnight ferry to Sweden because I want to check out Sweden before we get to Copenhagen. And that was great because at the end of the night, I knew this was going to happen. I took a picture of my cabin. I was like, at some point, I'm probably going to have a lot to drink and I'm going to get lost. And sure enough, that happens after I see some live music. I'm making my way to my cabin. I can't find it. I feel like I'm in a maze, but I hear music and I work my way to the top deck and there's karaoke going on. And of course, the sun never really sets there. It kind of goes down for a bit, but you've always got sunlight. So we've got sunlight in our eyes. We're on the top deck. It's 4 a.m. There's a couple Americans there. We hit it off right away. There's some Nordic kids up there that want to sing some of their black metal, death metal stuff, and the Americans. Bon Jovi hits everywhere. So there's a lot of Bon Jovi being played. So that got me till about 7 a.m. I took a quick 2-hour nap and ended up in Stockholm, which was stupid expensive. So all I did was I literally walked across Stockholm, stopped somewhere, grabbed some Swedish meatballs, hopped on a train and went west. So anyway, I work my way to Copenhagen. We get there. And this is where like the snake pit stuff starts to pick up for me. So my friends, the Brazilians, are there, and I saw they were in Helsinki. Reached out to them. I was like, how did we miss each other? And it's like, we'll see each other. We missed each other in Stockholm. We were going to try to meet for lunch, but they went to the ABBA Museum. So I met them when I got to Copenhagen. So I meet up with them, and they were coming in. They didn't have the I Disappear pass, so they ended up buying tickets. And then last minute, they said, we're going to buy snake pit passes. So they all bought snake pit passes. And one of them had won. They had already entered the contest. Well, one of them had won a pair of snake pit passes for Friday. And it's like, when it comes to stuff like that, like I'm sensitive to those issues. I don't even joke about it. I'm like, they paid a lot of money to fly here. They paid a lot of money for these tickets. I know that the wages in Brazil aren't quite like the wages in the US and Europe. So I was like, I'm not even going to joke about that. I'm not going to say, hey, you could throw me one. I'm like, I'll let them handle their business. They'll recoup some money if they need to. So I end up hanging out with them for the rest of the evening. I'm able to meet up with my friends from Norway, Glenn and Ula. We have a great time that night. The next day I wake up, I'm hungover. Like, I don't want to go wait in line. I've got a message. Hey, Chris, would you like to join us in the snake pit today? Like, yes, just all the weight off my shoulders. I don't have to stand in one spot in line. I get there. They introduce me to my new friend, Danny from Costa Rica. And I had been told about him from my friend Christina from Denmark. So I was like, oh, I've heard about you, nice to meet you. So he was the other person they chose to come in. And they said, here's what we want you to do. So being that I Disappear, I have the early access to go in. Even though they have snake pit passes, none of them had early access. But they were like, we want you to go hold our spot in the snake pit. I was like, okay, I can do that. So I go in and they're like, we want you to go stand where Lars's first drum riser is. So for the first 4 songs, this is where Lars's drum kit comes up. I was like, okay, I'll do that. So I go in there. All the people that get in there early are generally trying to get the dip. They want to be right by that microphone where James is going to be for pretty much a quarter of the show. So I go in there, all my friends, I know all these people at both dips. And I'm texting them from the inside. I'm like, hey, I can get us a spot at the dip, because I want to hang out with these people too. And they're like, no, you've got to go to the first drum riser. I was like, okay. So I go walk over there. I'm just standing by myself. I'm talking to the security guards. And I'm like, I don't need to wait here, but I do. Those are the orders. And then this guy walks up to me and he's like, hey, can I stand here with you? I'm like, sure. He's like, what is this? I go, well, this is where drum riser 1 is going to be. This is what's going to happen. He's like, oh, great. Cool. I'm like, where are you from? Poland. Hey. So it turned out this is my buddy, Eddie. He was, pretty much where I had been for the first 22 shows I went to, which was, just sort of showing up, not really there to hang out with anybody, see the band and get out. But him being from Poland, immediately struck up that conversation. And I was like, at that point, once I realized that he wasn't there to hang out with anybody or see anybody, I was like, let me open you up to this world. I've been where you've been, and I want better for you. So, this worked out because on Sunday, so we get to see the show. And drum riser 1 was absolutely perfect. Seeing the drum riser come up right in front of me, being able to give Lars high fives. And then once drum riser 2 goes down, a lot of people wanted to flock over to drum riser 2. I was of the opinion, I was like, well, I want to go see Orion, their instrumental up close. That was going to be at drum riser 3. So I was like, while everybody's scooting to 2, I want to scoot over to 3. So my Brazilian friends take off for 2, me and Eddie take off for 3. And we're able to get up super close to 3 while everybody's working to 2. And that worked out great as well. And then from there, I realized, okay, from there, I can either try to work towards 4, I can work towards the dip. I ended up working towards the dip that night. Or I can go back and see friends in the middle of the snake pit. I was like, I've got options at that point. So that was a stark contrast to being in Arlington and being in the snake pit and being kind of just far back, moving around, being like, okay, I'd rather be by the rail. that was like the show that opened up my eyes and kind of created an addiction to, I need to be in the snake pit. So Sunday rolls around. I show up. I end up, I end up in line, fashionably late, so I'm not going to get a great spot. Talk to some friends. There ends up being there's a girl from Colorado who happens to be there. She said she had work in Europe. She's in the frantic line, so she's ahead of me. And so I talked to her for a bit. Don't get too much information, but I was like, I may see her again another Metallica concert. She's somebody in Colorado. It'd be worth trying to talk to her and at least see if we see each other again.
Yeah.
We get inside. They mixed the lines at that point. And when they did that, so they let the frantic people into the arena first. There's another line to wait in, and then they send in the I disappear people. So if you're frantic and you showed up late, now you're behind the I disappear people. So I think, and unfortunately I don't remember her name, but she had gone in, and I think she maybe went use the facilities, maybe went to go get some food or something, because I look up and she's behind me in line. But so she's standing directly across from me. I'm like, oh, hey, how did you end up here? And so we chat for a bit. And then we end up getting inside. So as I'm going by, so over by the dip, I had mentioned earlier, I wanted to move towards Lars's station. So outside on all four corners, each band member has their own station where like their tech is, where all their gear is, where all their stuff is set up. So one of the most popular spots is you want to be by the dip, by James's section. So you can see James come in, maybe get a high five from him. He smokes his cigars in between some of the songs there. And people just love being in his presence. So as I'm going in, I see the Brazilians, and they've got that coveted spot there by James's section. I'm going by, I'm like, hey, there you guys are. And they just grab me and pull me in. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the first time I'm going to do, James's spot. I'm here for it. I end up talking to this guy from Iran, and I see the girl from Colorado next to him. She ended up behind me, and I felt bad at that point. I was like, she should be up here. But I end up getting in this conversation with this guy from Iran. And he's so happy to meet somebody from the United States. He's so happy to meet a Metallica fan, and he's so happy to meet somebody that knows soccer as well. So he was, I don't know, I was a unicorn to him. And well, anyway, so we have a good lengthy discussion, and all of a sudden my phone starts ringing, and I'm thinking, what kind of phone call am I getting in Europe? I look, I didn't know you could call people on Instagram, and my buddy Eddie is calling me, and he's like, hey, did you get my message? I go, no. He goes, I'm with a woman. She has extra snake pit passes, and she asked me if I knew anybody. He's like, I only know one person here. And I was like, yeah, I'll be right there. So my new buddy from Iran, I'm like, hey, today's your lucky day. How would you like to be on the rail? So I bring him up, take off. It turns out this woman had, she had bought 4 snake pit passes. One for, her husband, and her 2 kids. Well, these were purchased back in 2022. Now it's 2024. She had since been divorced. Husband had the kids. They weren't there. So she had these passes to give out. And then I was so thankful. And she was like, I'll just stick with you guys. So we showed her what we had figured out in the snake pit. And she was grateful for that experience. And she was grateful. She saw, the passion that I have for the band and like all of their mannerisms and everything. So she was like, you totally deserved it. And I was like, I hope I did. So that was a great experience there. My friend Eddie, it was just days after his birthday, got one of Lars's sticks there when we were at Drum Riser 3. So he was on cloud 9. So from there, took off to Norway with Glenn and Ula. Got to vacation with them and these guys, they're the Vikings. They go to every show. They're seen at every show. They've both been to 200 plus shows. Wow. And I happen to have met. So Glenn is the first person I talked to on 3 different continents. I met the band at a meet and greet in 2018 in Salt Lake City. Right after that, I was in line. I had my drink tickets. And I was like, I got to talk to somebody. I turn around. It's the Viking. It's Glenn from Norway. Hey, I'm Chris. I'm Glenn. How many shows are you going to? All of them. holy crap. And then I met him again, 2019. I was on the bus from the plane to the terminal in Warsaw. And I saw him and I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember this, but oh yeah. And he did. And so it was like, hey, nice to see you again. I'll see you around. And then I ended up getting to meet him and party with him a little bit in Brazil on that tour. So at that point, 3 different continents. And then we got to hang out more in LA. And once we got to LA and I realized I was putting this European trip together, I was like, I'd love to come visit you in Norway. He's like, please do. And he tells me, I invite people all the time. We'll take care of them. And people generally don't come. My friends, Jason and Val, they knew it. They're like, this is the best kept secret. This is a great vacation. You know, we come to Norway, they take care of us. We have a good time. And so I went with Jason and Val to go vacation with them for the week. So thanks for letting me be a part of your vacation. Yeah, we had a good time. And then from there, I took off to Poland. And that's because we had a few weeks off. So I was going to spend some time there, go to the small towns where my family was from. Did some time, had a lot of fun in Krakow, went to Wrocław, which is where my dad was born. I didn't originally plan on going there, but I just found I had so much time on my hands. I might as well go, and absolutely loved that city. Took off to Warsaw in time for the shows. July 4th was that Thursday. And I wanted to make sure that I treated July 4th properly, even though I was abroad. So I found a liquor store that had some American bourbon, bought a bottle of bourbon, woke up that day, had some sips of bourbon, went out to a restaurant and got apple pie just to start my day. At that point, I was like, okay, I'm thoroughly American. Now I can go do my sightseeing. So that was a good time. That night I meet up with my buddy Eddie. We go to meet the Germans to hang out, and then we're hanging out, seeing my friend Christina from Denmark, my buddy Sveti from Connecticut. He's Bulgarian. We get there, we're hanging out. I get a text from Natalia. She's like, I'm with the Polish crew. If you want to see them, come here. I was like, all right, Eddie, we're out of here. And I'm telling him, I'm like, these are the people you live here in Poland. You need to get in with this crew. You need to come party with these guys. So we get over there, and I meet a lot of them that night. And I loved them. They loved me. And it was like that. This is a really cool crew. After the show Friday in Warsaw, I get to the rail. Brett Murray is one of the band photographers, and he does a lot of the crowd shots, and then he posts it on the website a couple days later. So it was awesome. I wore my Polish soccer jersey. I was there on the rail. I was next to my buddy Sveti, and he's got a picture of us. I think I remembered it was during Harvester of Sorrow, but he got our picture. So I've got a picture of me in the Polish National Stadium wearing my Polish soccer jersey on the rail at Metallica. And he had already gotten a few shots of me before in Helsinki, both shows, 2 the first night, 1 the second night. But I was like, that picture is near and dear to me. Afterwards, go hang out with the Polish crew, just across the street, at a bar. And then that's when they tell me, they're like, hey, we're going to be coming to Seattle, for the North America tour. And I didn't plan on going to Seattle. I had looked at Minneapolis and Mexico City, which was 2 weekends. And I was like, well, crap. I was like, if the Polish guys are going to Seattle, I'm going to Seattle. So I was like, it's done. I'll be there. I'll see you there. Do Warsaw the rest of the weekend, hang back by the soundboard. So that was the thing. Night 1 in 2019, I had no problems with the crowd. Talking to my Polish friends, they were talking about how crazy the Polish crowd is and how much of a nightmare 2019 was. I was like, I didn't have that same experience. That night on the rail, night 1 in Warsaw, I had to fight for my life to keep my rail spot. There was just this drunk bear of a guy that literally grabbed the guy next to me, and they struggled for a while. He grabbed him and moved him, and then he was fighting for my spot. And I was like, I'm not losing my spot. So I did everything I could to maintain it. And then finally, I think once Lars made it to us for drum kit 4, that's when that guy finally relented. So I had expended a lot of energy by that point, but I got fight fire with Lars. I got Seek and Destroy, which is my favorite song. They play it all the time. People are tired of it. It's my favorite song. And so I was like, that was totally worth all the effort and everything. The next night, Proxima was the club, and Rusty Head, the former Alcoholica, they're the premier Metallica cover band in Poland, but now they have their own albums, their own music. They were playing at that night in between, and there's always these legendary night in betweens from different places, and Proxima is one of them. But I had a great time, expended a lot of energy there. And by Sunday, I was like, I'm in my 40s now. My body doesn't want to do, I can't fight for my life again. So I go by the soundboard. That's the only time I did it in Europe, but at least I was able to do it with a huge group of friends. Made plenty of new friends that night. And I saw them more throughout. But yeah, after Warsaw, we took off to Spain. Spain is where it was just stupid hot. It was much like being in Arlington again. Every time I got back to my Airbnb, I had salt stains on my arms. So that week I was like, I'm not going to be drinking. I'm not going to be eating fried foods. Luckily I was next to a grocery store. I ate healthy I actually lost weight that week in Europe. Just because I wanted to stay hydrated. But yeah, Spain was a great time. My friend, call him Patient Zero. My friend Michel from Brazil, he's that first person that I started talking to at the rail in Brazil when I said I need to start meeting people. And me and Michel, we had an epic photo together, another Brett Murray photo taken at the rail during Master of Puppets in Curitiba. And in that instance, I had just explained to Michel. So there's a saying that James Hetfield says in Master of Puppets. And it's pancakes go. So if you ever listen to the album version, it's when he says fix me. Live, he says pancakes go. So I have a hat embroidered that says pancakes go. It's what I wore when I met the band. And so I just finished explaining to him, I was like, when this part comes up, he's going to say pancakes go. And there's a whole backstory behind that. But at that point where I knew it because my hat had been forward the whole show. And right then when I showed it to him, I threw it on backwards. We went right into headbanging. And Brett Murray took that photo, and my friend Michel had that photo blown up, was meeting the band, and had Brett Murray sign it. And Brett was like, I'll always remember my first autograph. Nobody had ever asked me to sign my own work before. So me and Michel had kept in touch over the last couple of years. He said, I'm doing Madrid. He showed up, and we were like, we're going to try to do at least one Snake Pit together. And so I'd been looking. Everybody wanted to do Madrid because it was the last stop on the tour for Europe. So it didn't look like it was going to happen. But he reaches out to me. His son has been, I think his son is 12, has been having problems with the heat all week in Madrid. And so he was like, I don't think he can do it. I don't think he can stand out there the whole time and do this. So he was like, what I'm going to do, I can sell you a pass. And I was like, I'm happy to pay for it. We just have to do this together. So that Snake Pit cures everything. I was feeling sick that day. I went to go get a massage. But once I got that news and I knew that I was going to be in there with my brother, I was like, I had tickets to go see Pearl Jam that night at the Mad Cool Festival. And at first I didn't feel like going. Well, boom, all of a sudden it was like second wind. Went out there, saw my friends Glenn and Ulaw. He ends up texting me during the show, and he's like, I have more news. I won Snake Pit passes. So he won the contest. So it worked out great because now he's got his Snake Pit passes for his family and Snake Pit passes for me and him. So yeah, we meet up Friday. We haven't seen each other since Brazil 2022. We go in there. I'm like, hey, this is how the Snake Pit's going to be. So we get to do that experience together along with his wife and his son. Night one is when they do Master Puppets. So she videos us together. Pancakes go. And so it was like it was great just euphoric. That was a great moment. And then roll around to Sunday. And he goes, so at this point, he's like, this Snake Pit pass, I have the 2 for today. He's like, it's for you. So I pay him for that one. We go experience the black box experience again that I'd done in St. Louis, with the food, playing the instruments, getting guitar picks, stuff like that. And then, yeah, we go down there and we do it again. And I think it was around 3, because it was at that point you have options. And at that point, that's where we parted. It was like, he's going to do this. And I was like, I got to go to the middle and see my friends. This is the end of this leg of the tour. The other thing that was going on was the Euro Cup. Spain was in it. They were playing England. So I believe it was during, I can't remember which song was which, but during Moth into Flame, the stadium erupts. And it's like, oh yeah, that game is going on. And I think that's when Spain scored in the 88th minute. And then during one, boom, the stadium erupts again. And that was the final whistle. And so Madrid was just about to go nuts because Spain had won Euro. Yeah, we go. So once we leave the stadium, everybody's saying their final goodbyes. We're taking all the final pictures. Once we get to the subway, it's just Spain chants and flags everywhere. I'm kissing people's badges on their shirts, and the next day was the parade in Madrid. So at that point, there's the post Metallica depression. Yeah, you've been in the city all week. There's all this anticipation. All your friends are showing up. Where's the party at? Yeah, we've got the concerts. And then the very next day, boom, everything is gone. The spirit is gone. You're just another tourist in a big city. And so there's this real like post Metallica depression that happens. But I was able to get myself out of bed, get downtown in Madrid and be a part of the parade. And fortunately, somebody I had met just 2-3 days previous saw me, called out my name. I'm in this mass of people. And I was so thankful to see a friendly face and hang out with some friends for the evening. And then yeah, came back home. Then after that led up to Minneapolis, where I got up to the rail both nights. Was with my friend Paul from Edmonton again on that second night. That first night, I finally got my first drumstick. I never really tried to get drumsticks before. And I would generally point, like, it's my friend Eddie. Hey, point to this person. This person deserves a drumstick. And I think there were 3 shows in a row where the person next to me got a drumstick. And I'm just like, this person. For whatever reason, that first night in Minneapolis, just feeling the crowd around me, I was like, nobody deserves a drumstick. I deserve a drumstick. And Lars's drum tech, Jimmy, comes out with all the drumsticks and he stands in front of me. And I see Lars walking up. And at that point, I don't know, I just become desperate. Oh, Lars, I've been to so many shows. I never get a stick. It's like, how many shows? 45. I rocked out with you in Europe. I was there with you in Warsaw. And he's like, 45, no stick. He goes, that's sad. Then he grabs a drumstick, hands it to me, and walks off. And I was so thankful. I was fortunate that the guy next to me had videoed it, and I had already given him my phone number because he had a great video of Zach Wilde doing the solo from Cowboys from Hell, and so a couple days later he sent me the I didn't realize he had it. He sent me the solo, and then he sends me that video, and I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. So yeah, saw a lot of my international friends who would come over at Minneapolis, and that set the tone for Seattle, where I got to stay with a couple good buddies of mine, Brian and Jason. Brian is a friend of Kirk's, the guitarist. So he was like, I might be able to get you VIP. So I get there and he's like, you've got VIP. But the thing was, they were pulling back. The fire marshal had pulled back on the amount of snake pit passes. And we had heard about this happening at Foxborough as well. I didn't go to Foxborough, but we had heard that they had limited snake pit passes. He was like, hey, he's like, I haven't been shut out yet, even in Foxborough. He's like, I'm a friend of the band, not a friend of a crew member. He's like, so we should look good. And then it turned out we ended up getting shut out as well. Seattle was really, really strict. Anyways, we had our VIP stuff. I was like, that's cool. I'm going to go enjoy the lounge. I'm going to hang out with my friends. I can have a day where I hang back. It's fine. I go to lunch. I come back, meet up with a couple of my international friends. And my buddy Frank from Netherlands, they're like, hey, what are you going to do? I was like, I'll just end up at the soundboard. It doesn't matter. pulls out a snake pit pass for me. He's like, here. I was like, great. That was like, you just made my whole weekend. So I get to go do that. My friends end up in there as well. So we have a great time. The Polish crew is there. Leading up to that, they had gone to Mount Rainier National Park. I found out which tour they were on. I jumped on that tour. I joined them for the tour, had a great time. And that's when they said, hey, we're throwing our 25th anniversary chapter party in the Tatra Mountains in Poland. We've got a lodge, we've got rooms, all this. We would like for you to come. And immediately I was like, if you're doing that and inviting me, I'm there. So as soon as we get back to cell service, I'm looking at my schedule to clear it. I'm looking at plane tickets. And but by the end of the day, I was like, hey, I'll be there. And they're like, really? Already? Yeah, I was like, I'm there, dude. So from there, Sunday, get up close by the rail, hanging out with friends there. That's pretty much it for the USA. Had a great time with that crew and with the Polish crew. And that led up to Mexico City. So this is like, the end of the 2-year tour that they had set forth. And so it's 2 weekends in between. I go hit the beach. Luckily I went West Coast because the hurricanes were happening on the East Coast. So I think, there were some weird days in between there. But this was like the bucket list thing. So a lot of us grew up on their live shit Binge and Purge music, which was when they filmed they recorded a couple nights in Mexico City after the Black Album had come out. And it has this powerful arena sound. And it's like, we know all the James mannerisms and what he's going to say and where he's going to throw in, all his curse words and all that. And so, but it's kind of the stuff we live by when we go to these live shows. So it's always been a dream to see them in Mexico. A lot of people, a lot of my international friends are showing up for weekend 2. But yeah, we get there and I'm there with some of my international friends that have just been doing the whole tour. So it's great to see them. That first weekend I'm right by the stadium. I turn out to be in a sex hotel. So these rooms are getting flipped. Housekeeping is there 24/7. The doors are just wide open. They give you a key and a remote. And I'm like, this is weird. I go, my door is wide open. I go in, I shut it, I lock it. Giant mirror right in front of the bed. Turn on the TV. I'm like, sports, porn. Okay, we're done here. And one of my friends is like, what hotel you at? I'm coming over. But then I didn't realize, I knew Mexico City was a massive city, but you don't realize how massive it is until you're there. Where are you at? I'm an hour away this way. Where are you at? Hour this way. It's just, nobody was near each other. So I'm all dressed up, ready to go nowhere. And I keep hearing music outside my window. And finally I realized, I was like, man, that sounds like Metallica. And I'm thinking, whatever bar that is, that's where I need to be. So I go down to street level. I can't hear anything from there. So I go over to a 7-Eleven to grab some drinks. But as I get closer to 7-Eleven, I can hear the music again. I'm like, wow. I was like, that's loud. So I start walking and I realize I'm walking towards the stadium and I'm like, they're doing sound check. And so I was like, okay. So I walk over and I'm able to get to this chain link fence, look into the arena, into the stadium. And they've got their screens that they have where I'm able to watch these giant pillars with screens on top. And I was treated to my own concert, essentially. I think I got like 5 songs out of it. I took some video. A lot of people were just driving by in cars, and in Mexico, they're all just parking on the side of the road, pulling out their kids. They're all on the chain link fence, just listening to Metallica. And it was so cool. That was I termed it night 0 because we have night 1 and night 2. I heard one song that they were going to play. They hadn't played it all year. It wasn't like, oh my God, they're going to play that song, but I didn't want to ruin it and say, hey, they're playing Hardwired. They're going to play it this weekend. I don't want to ruin anything for people. A lot of people like to share set lists. I heard this is going to be on there. As they're putting the set list on the stage, they'll take a picture and they want to tell you. And I'm like, don't ruin it for me. Like, I want to hear the intro tape to Fight Fire with Fire and lose my crap then. I don't want to know it's coming. But anyway, that was great. Did the shows. So the first day, I was hooked up with a snake pit pass. Yeah, because no, it was before I even got in, so that was good. Got in there, was able to just be free, and the goal was, though, I was like, I need to be on the rail at some point for one of these shows. So I spent my time doing, my normal snake pit routine, made a lot of local friends. My friend Armando happened to be there at Drum Kit 1, his first Metallica concert ever. He got into them through like Guitar Hero. And so I met, him and his girlfriend and a lot of his friends. And so that whole mob was like, we're following you. So everywhere I went in the snake pit, throughout the night, I had this mob following me. And then, night 2 was going to be my 50th show. My buddy Neville had won snake pit passes. And so he was like, well, we'll make sure that you get in. We also had some other friends that we wanted to bring, and we're like, how are we going to make this work? Well, my friend Alex from Russia, who I actually did some vacationing with in Brazil on that Brazil tour, he found me back by the soundboard as we were waiting to go in. And he's like, I'll be back. Okay. He disappears. He comes back. He's like, stick out your arm. I stick out my arm. He throws on a snake pit pass. I'm like, all right, guys, I'll see you in there. Go in there. His buddy Kenny had hooked me up. He was like, this is the man you need to thank. So I did so the only way I could to another Russian, which was I bought him a lot of beer for the rest of the evening. And then, I got to really enjoy my 50th show. When I got to Drum Riser 3, they played Sanitarium. That's one of my top 3, favorite songs live. And at the end of it, James has his own brand of guitar pick, the White Fang. And so, he plays the final notes and he just throws it straight up in the air. I was like, oh my goodness, there it is. It comes down to the ground, is able to get down and get it. And I was like, that's for my 50th show. Hang out with friends there, do it right. Trying to think if there's anything else, but completed my 50th show, took off, had a little vacation, came back. Even more people are in town now for this last weekend. That just knocked Mexico City off the bucket list. Unfortunately and sadly, that Thursday night we're out partying. It's about 2 a.m. We're waiting for our Ubers, and we find out that a member of St. Germany that was there had passed away in his hotel room that evening. Wow. And so a lot of those people are near and dear to us. And I was like, selfishly, it's like, I hope it's not someone I know, but, things are going to happen. So anyway, that really hurt our hearts because a lot of our brothers and sisters now were hurting. The next day they were deciding, do we go to the show? Do we not go to the show? And, I think they made the right choice of, we go to the show. I think that member would want you to do that, would want you to go enjoy Metallica on their behalf. So that's the day that I went in there, beelined it to the rail. I'm going to be on the rail. But I'm thinking of all my brothers and sisters from St. Germany back there. I some of those people that had just made it in for that weekend that I'd been anticipating seeing and were already, sharing tears outside. And so then after 30 minutes of standing there, we're not even close to any music starting. I just realized I was like, I don't have the strength to do this. I was like, I need to be back there. So I give some lucky girl my spot, go back there, give my condolences as they're filing in and just telling them that we're happy that they're there and they need to feel our support. And so as I'm back there hanging out with my buddy Nathan from Ohio, and so after the openers are done, I head off to the restroom. As I'm coming back out, the Russians find me and they're like, "Are you in the snake pit?" I'm like, "No, not tonight. I'm back here with this." They're like, "Stick out your arm." Here you go. Slap on another snake pit pass. I'm like, let's go get some beer. And so we go in there, and a couple of my buddies from St. Germany, Karsten and Nick are in the snake pit as well. And they're just kind of, they're taking it in. They're thinking of their brother. So I just, I note where they are. We go in there, we start having fun with the opening songs. And then James comes on. He's like, we'd like to dedicate this next song to our brothers and sisters at St. Germany. We're sorry for your loss. And I was like, wow, that's great. That word made it to the band and that they made that gesture to their fans. So then they go off into Of Wolf and Man, which is a song I'd only heard once before on my 21st birthday. And so at that point, I was like, I got to go see Karsten and Nick. So I run over, and there they are, and they're taking it all in. I give them a hug, and I got an epic photo from behind of Karsten holding up his flag, wearing a St. Germany jacket, and sent that his way. From there, moved on. My friend Andrea from Toronto, so we'd seen each other in Europe, and then I saw her again in Minneapolis, and I saw that she'd gotten snake pit passes. She had gone in there, experienced it the first time the way I experienced it for the first time, and then she had told me that she's back, she's good with being on the rail. I was like, I know the feeling, and I want better for you. So we had found each other in the snake pit, and I was like, follow me. I'm going to show you how to do this. So I was able to give her that experience that night. And then towards the end of the show, something that had never gone through my mind, but that I remembered, was that James generally takes off his wristbands and throws them into the crowd. And so I started to think about it, and I was like, I can go get a wristband. So I start to position myself where I want to, because usually after it's all done, they'll walk up to this platform from the fourth drum riser. They say all their goodbyes, and that's when he'll toss them. So I find my spot. They start throwing out guitar picks, and I'm like, I don't want to give up my spot for some guitar picks, but some reached me. I was able to get that night's guitar pick, and that's that they have a special one for each night for each city. So that's one of the forms of anxiety that I have, is I got to be sure I get that night's guitar pick. And then if I don't, somebody's generally nice enough to give me one, or I can trade for one. But in that instance, I looked around, and I was just trying to give myself confidence. I looked around, I was like, I'm the best wide receiver in this snake pit. I can get this. And sure enough, he pulls one off. He acts like he's going to throw it, and then he hands it down to somebody, and then he pulls off the other one, turns around, throws it like a bride's bouquet. And as soon as it left his hand, I was like, I know that's mine. I know it's mine. And it comes my way. I go up in the air, and, both hands on it. And I can feel just all these hands on my arms come down with it. And then everybody's patting me on the back and is happy for me. And I was like, oh my goodness, and it's got a sweat on it. Everybody's like, oh, I want to touch it. It was cool. I was showing everybody. It was like just a little kid moment. And then, we end up fast forwarding. So my buddy Paul from Edmonton reaches out to me the night before that Sunday show. And he's like, hey, I still have an extra snake pit pass. I think I'd briefly seen him that day on Friday, and he had told me about it. I was like, oh yeah, he won snake pit passes. And he's like, would you like it? And I was like, yes. So no rail's going to happen for me, which is fine. So I get there, I meet up with him, and he's telling me, hey, the reason I wanted to bring you, it seems like you've been in there a lot. I haven't done it. I want you to show me how to do it. And I was like, great. And I was like, snake pit coach, adding that to the resume. So we go in there, and that last day was just such a celebration of just like the whole tour, like seeing all the friends. So yeah, we were parked up close, and then we made it over for number 3. And by that point, I was just like, I have to say goodbye, as well as celebrate with everybody I know in the snake pit at this point, this being the end. And it was great because a lot of our friends did converge in one spot, and we were able to do all the final songs together. And then afterwards take all our final pictures and sort of say goodbye. And of course, let that post Metallica depression set in. Fortunately for me, what I learned after Madrid was don't stay a couple extra days, because then you really feel it. Whereas Mexico City, I had to fly out at 5 a.m. the next morning. So it was all hustle and bustle from there. Me and Jason went to our friends Matt and AJ over to their hotel room, kicked it there until I had to go to the airport. And then I was quickly out of there. So I didn't have time to sit there and stew and the spirit being gone. But yeah, I mean, that's in a nutshell.
Yeah. No, I mean, it sounds just incredible experience after incredible experience. I was talking with some friends from another podcast, and I said that I was going to be having this conversation with you, and he said, I saw Metallica for the first time opening for Ozzy Osbourne in 1984, and and now it's 2025, and Metallica is just has this iconic status that, and you can see just listening from your stories how it's connected people. What do you think has made Metallica um, one of those properties of pop culture that continues to connect from the early 80s through now the mid 2020s?
Yeah, obviously their iconic songwriting, that early on, the stuff that people adopted, and then for me, that was the thing. That's what I adopted in high school, and yet and their longevity obviously helps that, because I'm one of these people that are in my 40s now that can still say that, yeah, I get to follow the people that I latched onto in high school. A lot of people can't say that. There's some Pearl Jam fans. There's me. I'm sure there's some country acts out there. I don't know too much about that. But the longevity, and then of course, yeah, the fact that it's the fact that James and Lars have been able to put together the stuff they've been able to put together, have been able to stay together. That's huge. Obviously, stuff like in 2003, the Some Kind of Monster documentary comes out, and it shows the band could be breaking apart, could become no longer, and obviously they're a part of a big corporate machine that is designed to keep them together as well.
Right.
For as big as they are. But you can see it, just with the stuff they put out, but also see it live, that they still enjoy doing this with each other. I have a buddy here who used to be a general manager at an Italian restaurant, and James came in with his family, and he talked up James about hunting, because James is an avid hunter. But James even told him, he was like, but at the end of the day, he was like, this never gets old. This is what I live for. So it's amazing that they still have the passion and the flame to do that. But that's it. When we show up, and when the Metallica family shows up, and we bring each other in and we hang out, there's people from all walks of life, all kinds of different politics, this and that, and people are pretty good at checking that at the door. And then we're all there for like one common cause. Versus, I usually show up to a sporting event. Half the people hate each other there. Somebody's going to walk out a winner. Somebody's going to walk out a loser. And that's what I like when we leave Metallica. Like, we all leave winners. I don't know, though. It really does. It seems to bring out the best in the fans as well. Just when we meet with each other, it's all good.
All right. Well, hey, I appreciate you taking the time. I did want to touch on. I know you're obviously a big college football fan. I wanted to touch on some, but we're out of time, unfortunately. So I'll have to have you back on. We'll talk a little bit of about college football and the playoff and all that kind of the changing of college football as we know it, really. But so I'll have to have you back on sometime to talk some college football too.
Cool.
Well, thanks for taking the time. This was great. I had only a fraction of an idea of all the exciting and cool things that you got to be a part of. So I'm really happy that you shared with us today. So thanks a lot, Chris.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Really enjoyed this episode. I know that I did. Chris had so many great stories and so many anecdotes about the people that he met, and just you could tell that this was something that means a whole heck of a lot to him. And obviously it's a really unique, fun experience that he was able to take part in and make some really lasting memories. And it was also an easy lift for me because he just went off, and man, it was great. It was great. I loved it. I loved every minute, hearing every ounce of these stories. I've been seeing his posts on social media from various shows along the way on this, and I'm just like, man, I got to talk with him about this. And man, talk he did, and I'm so glad that he did. I'm so glad that he shared. Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you so much for listening. I think it's awesome, the community that we've created. Chris talked a lot about the community that he found, through the music and through Metallica and through going through these shows. And really, I've found a lot of the same kind of things through podcasting. And you guys listening, you guys interacting, all of that is really just great. It's so awesome to have connected with so many of you. Speaking of connections, I have recently been on a podcast with Tom and Michelle from the Hyperion Adventures podcast, which will be coming out in a couple of weeks. Totally fun conversation. I encourage you to listen to them anyway, whether I'm on there or not, because they have a great show. Especially if you're a fan of Disney, it's a must listen. If you're just a fan of cool people talking about fun things, it's a must listen. So listen, I appreciate everything that you guys do, but if I can ask for one favor, I would love it if you guys would leave a rating or a review on your favorite podcatcher. I also love it when you guys interact with me on social media. We are on Facebook. You can just search for the Maza's Musings podcast. We're also on Twitter, X, Instagram, and Threads at Maza's Musings Pod. We are also on TikTok at Maza's Musings Podcast, and we're on Blue Sky. So most of the places that you would find things on social media, we're there. I also, if you guys are interested in supporting, you can also buy us a blue milk, which is our obligation-free way to help us with the small monetary costs that are associated with putting together this podcast. I've also got some other really cool, fun stuff coming up. And if you want to keep abreast of everything that's going on, you can sign up for our newsletter. And the best way to do that is to go to our website, mazasmusings.wordpress.com. You click the subscribe button, and there you go. You will be updated on upcoming episodes, shout outs to other podcasts. Sometimes if there are sweepstakes or contests, I'll let you know about that, and just some other cool stuff that might come up. So you can also, while you're there, find past episodes, find out more about the podcast, and other cool stuff is on there. So however you want to interact, I appreciate it all. I love all of the listenership. I appreciate it. And let me tell you, I've just had a blast doing this, and I really want to thank you guys for coming along for the ride. We've got some really cool stuff coming up. Sign up for the newsletter, find out all about it. In the meantime, I hope you guys have a great weekend and a great week. What are you doing?
Being Casey, cuckoo bananas, yeah,
Okay. Say goodnight, Meghan.